Welcome to this week's edition of The Open Book with Amy and Tommy. This is the Christmas edition as we begin the 12 days of Christmas, beginning with Christmas and going through Epiphany. So today we're going to be looking at John's Gospel and his story of Jesus' coming to earth in the incarnation. Amy, would you read that for us?
I'll be glad to. We'll be reading John 1 through 14. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him, not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him. Yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood or the will of the flesh or the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
God.
All right,
So
Amy, great text.
this passage, right, and it starts at the beginning.
Yeah.
This is a really lovely text.
So I want to start out by saying what this text doesn't include.
Okay.
When we think about the Christmas season, this is Christmas Day when
Mm-hmm.
many of you may be watching this video. And what we don't see in this text is baby Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
There are no angels.
Mm-hmm.
There's not shepherds in a field abiding their sheep.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's no Mary and Joseph in this text.
Right.
So I'm just, when I think about this text, I do associate it a lot with the Christmas season because it's about incarnation. But
Yes.
it's interesting how a lot of the nativity scene gets removed from this. There's not
Yeah.
a sentimentality of what do we do to hold on to this text for today?
Well, and for me, this passage has more theology, and the Matthew and Luke passages are more history or narrative, just kind of the telling of the story to find meaning. And this just gives the meaning and gives the theology. It doesn't go it's and the Word became flesh and lived among us. That's the detail that we get here. Not how, when, who was there, none of those details, but we get the detail that matters, that the Word became flesh and lived among us. And that's the point of
One
the
of the
whole
story.
story.
And I think one of the things with this, I think that's exactly right, is I started out this by saying Christmas begins the 12 days of Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
It begins the Christmas season. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't think most of us in our secular mentality think that way.
Mm-mm.
Most of us have been celebrating Christmas up until Christmas Day, and then when Christmas Day is gone, Christmas is gone for many people. It's we put away do something to the Christmas tree. We put away the nativity scene, and then I think sometimes we forget. But the Gospel of John is saying, um, this is something that infuses life. It's not something that happens just in an Advent at Christmas season, but it's something that is in us all the time. It's
Yes.
something that matters to us. Incarnation is one of the most vital things that we
Mhm.
know about
Yeah.
life, that God was willing to become one of us and teach us what it means to be human, teach us what it means to love.
Mhm. And even and I love the beginning of this, that God and Jesus have been a part of it since the beginnings, from all time. This was something new, and this was not something new. This was, uh, was already there, and was a part of all things, and yet um a new way to experience and understand God, um, who God is, who God is calling us to be, all of those things that we had to learn. And I think I'm gonna backtrack for a second, because I mean, you're exactly right that we don't that usually, December 26th, Christmas is over. Um, which it's the second day of Christmas. But and you said, I can't remember the exact, we've been celebrating Christmas,
Mm.
this whole month. And I would use a different a
Okay.
different word. We've
Well, how
been
would you say it?
we have been bombarded with Christmas.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Um, I think for some of us, is um the the buying Christmas gifts, wrapping Christmas gifts, getting the wish list out, making the cookies, thinking about all the things and all the details, and the parties and the celebration and the worship services, and all of the details, um that so while it is a season of preparation, it's always kind of how that there's just so many demands on it. And the Christmas music and the decorations and the ornaments and everything that have been on sale in stores, we've just seen it so much, and so we tire of it. But also, that's not Christmas. And so I wonder how we disconnect. And that's not to say that I don't love and enjoy doing Christmas gifts with my family, and that I don't enjoy, just the fun and the celebration of this season. But does the schedule and the decorations and the gifts, what do they take away from the real, um, from what matters? The Word
Mhm.
became flesh and lived among us. And so I'm wondering how we can move into this season of Christmas together, um, and be present to this story for the 12 days, because this, we talk about so many things with faith life. This isn't the end of the story. We haven't arrived because Jesus has arrived. This is when the story begins. So what do we need to be alert and awake and present to?
Yeah, I think that's right. So we're right there. I think you're right. In the beginning was the word was made flesh. That's the point um of the baby being born. And I think
Mhm.
that's what's happening here. I want to look at this interesting text in here that I gloss over a lot, and let me find it. Verse 12. I just want to take a little moment on verse 12 because I think we missed that a little bit in this text because we're very focused on the Christmas story. But verse 12 is, but to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood or of the will of the flesh or of the will of man, but of God. This idea that there's a Jesus came into this world in order that we might become children of God.
Yeah.
So there's an interesting thing in John. He's less concerned with the birth of Jesus than he is the birth the adoption, the birth, I don't know what you want to call it, the birth of Christ in us,
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
we might become children of God.
Mhm.
And I think that's an interesting thing too, that we say this a lot because it's the first line of it's the first thing in our Via Caris rule of life, is that we are beloved children of God.
Mhm.
And we have to say it over and over and over because it's hard to believe, because we
Right.
know ourselves pretty well and we think, oh, well, you can say that, but think of all the mistakes I've made. But here, there's a purpose to Jesus coming,
Yeah.
to let the light shine in the darkness, to give life that God created, and that we might all become children of God.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting thing for us here.
I love that, and I agree. And again, that's another way that John is saying this is the point.
This is
Um, this is the point. It, it's more than the shepherds and the wise men. It's you and it's me, and it's all of us. We are a part of this story, and so this brings us into the story in a beautiful and important, and unique way. Um,
And I don't think I've sung "O Little Town of Bethlehem" yet this year. Maybe that's coming in the next little weeks, but it has that line at the end, "Be born in us today,"
yes.
which I love, because I
Yeah.
think it's taking it out of this John text. How
Yeah.
can Christ be born in us today, so that Christmas isn't limited, our incarnation isn't limited to this one time, but
Yes.
Christ lives in us at all moments,
Yeah.
in all times,
Yes.
because we are beloved children of God, adopted into the
Mhm.
relationship of the Creator of the Trinity,
Yes. Yeah.
like that. But I,
True.
when you said bombarded, it made me think about, you know, we talk a lot about the one, our identity is rooted in the fact that we're beloved children of God, that we are created in the image of God. And that's what defines us. But there's so many other things that compete to tell us who we are.
Mhm.
And sometimes the sentimentality of Christmas is one of those for me.
Mhm.
Is like, you need to give the best gifts. You need to have the perfect party. If things don't work out like you need to, you are lesser than. You are not
Right.
enough.
Right.
And sometimes I think that contrasts with what we're trying to accomplish at Christmas, is
Right.
Christ came that we might know how to live more fully,
Right.
and have life and have it to the fullest.
Yeah, and I think that inhabits, and so that's, yeah, yes, because that's supposed to inhabit all of our lives, not one season or one day. So it's not about being, the best host or guest, or a great gift giver, or it or the best son or daughter, mother or father, sister or brother. But we are called as Christ did to love, it's to live that every day. It's not about, the gift and what we produce, or how we, you know just all that we do in the season, but it is about being, a good a good human, a good husband, wife, brother, sister, mother, father, person, every day, being thoughtful,
Mhm.
and generous, not just for a reason, but responding to, and caring for people, all throughout the
And
year.
that's a gift. That's a
It's
gift
a
we
gift,
continue to give. We give
absolutely.
the dignity and worth and love to another
Yes,
human being. We gift
and that's
them
it.
by words of encouragement and spending time with them. And
Right,
yes, by giving gifts,
right.
but not
But
just because we have to, but because it's something that comes out of a heart of love for another person.
right. And sometimes that is, bringing a meal when someone is sick, or sending a note or a text when someone has something significant, good or bad, happening. Um, and just checking it and being present because the word became flesh and lived among us. You
Mhm.
know, and so just thinking about living life with and walking and journeying um with others. Um and
'Cause this is not a transactional thing in
yes,
scripture, and I think
yes,
sometimes our everything we give so that we can receive, or
right.
we give something and we really want a thank you. So
Mhm.
it becomes less about the gift giving than the receiving, but it is more blessed to give than to receive.
Yeah.
As scripture
Yeah.
says lots of folks. And so how do we just give
Yeah.
without that expectation of anything?
Right.
Because
Right,
we
right, right.
because that's how God gave to us without an expectation. That's what
Yeah.
grace is.
Yeah. Well,
You
and I
don't have
also
to do anything.
think then if we move into and live lives every day, you know, focused on what we have learned from Jesus, then we can take um then I think people will always see us as generous and loving, you know, because they know that they are cared for and loved and valued and not and it's not out of obligation. You know, I mean, we you know, we have people that we know who we get a card or a gift because we're supposed to. And then but other people just love us well and all the time and it's not because they have to, it's because they love us and they love us well,
Mhm.
and what a gift that is.
So I'm borrowing this from someone because I think it's interesting. I think one of the things that I want to encourage people this season, because I think sometimes we get caught up into, have we done enough? Are we
Mhm.
enough? I feel guilty every year for not sending Christmas cards, but I can't ever get a picture. It takes me forever to do things like that.
Yeah,
It's not going to happen because
yeah,
it does not make my celebration joyous. And
yes.
yet I still feel a little bit guilty because I think there's an expectation, and that's okay. But
And we've talked about this, we have people who
yeah,
are so faithful that every year, because I don't do
the love
Christmas cards either, and I love getting them, but I did the same thing where um,
too
it
much.
just became too much and burdensome, and so as much as I loved to do them, it took away from this season, and so I opted not to, but I do feel that because there are some people who, even though they get nothing from me, every year I get, you know, pictures and cards from their family, and it is really,
That's lovely.
um, just lovely.
But even if you don't send out a card, you are
Mhm.
enough. And
That's
so I
right.
want to encourage this practice, and it can't happen just once. It has to happen a lot. And again, I'm borrowing this, changing a little bit, but every day from now to, let's say, the end of January, at least the 12 days of Christmas, from Christmas to January the 6th, look in the mirror every day and say, I am a beloved child of God who
Mm,
deserves love and respect, and
yes.
God will use me to change the world.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Every day, say those words into a mirror, because I think it's important for us to do a couple of things: to recognize that we are beloved children of God, we deserve love and respect, and that God will use us to change the world. Because
Mhm.
if we believe that about ourselves more than all, more often, we're going to share that with everybody. Because we're beloved children of God, and so is everyone else.
Mhm.
And we
Mhm.
can change the world by helping other people understand that about themselves too. And I think that's one of the messages of Christmas.
Yes. And one thing I love about that is, you know, as you talked about that, I think that is easier and more natural for a child to do. I think about
It
the
is.
confidence of a child who wonders and believes great big. Um, and and so then I love this that we are a child of God. And the intentional word child of God. And so embracing, you know, we are not a person who God loves, you know, we are a child of God.
Absolutely.
And so So let's embrace the wonder and the possibility and the promise that we have. And let's see ourselves, go back and think about a season in your life, or think about a child in your family who just kind of exudes that confidence of being able to do anything, which means that he or she can change the world, and embrace that, and know that this just just as Christmas gifts should not be, this is not we do not live our faith with a measuring stick,
Mhm.
proving our worth. The very best we can do is to be the person God has called and created us to be. And so some of us will change the world in very visible ways, and some will be in very beautiful ways, and some will be in very small ways, and some will be in relational ways. And so don't measure your value and identity
That's right.
against anybody else's,
That's right.
but as a child of God. You are uniquely created. Um,
And I had a spiritual director who kind of helped me with a couple of things. Uh, One was, though we don't compare, we are children of God,
mhm,
but sometimes our practices move us in a different direction, and whatever those things are.
mhm,
Um, and this person said our practices should always cause us to become more patient with others and ourselves, to be less judgmental of others and ourselves, to live more fully into the calling that God has given to us. And I think to make us more loving toward
mhm.
others and ourselves. And it's always about others and ourselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think we'll find ourselves in this holiday season becoming less patient and more judgmental, and forgetting some of those things. And I think just recognizing that and stopping for a minute,
Mhm,
taking a deep breath and realizing I'm a beloved child of God. In
mhm.
this situation, I can be patient and loving because the Spirit lives in me.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, Something else that I want to spend just a minute with is the word.
The word,
um,
logos.
and what one thing that I really love, for me, that I'm finding meaning with is, how this has been a central theme through this season and up until Epiphany. So we can carry it into the 12 days of Christmas. The theme of our Advent devotions that church members have written is the word became flesh, and we've been thinking clearly and specifically about the words associated with our Advent wreath: hope, peace, joy, and love. And then we will end this season with an Epiphany celebration, a day or two early, but nonetheless, an Epiphany celebration. And as a part of that celebration, we will each have the opportunity to choose a word that can be a word that guides us, this coming year. Um, and and so I love for I love the thinking about words and how they mean and how they speak, and then thinking about Jesus as the word. Words give meaning. These are glasses. This is a book. This is a pen. This is words give meaning. Jesus gives meaning, and helps define who God is for us. In Jesus, we see all that we need to see to understand God. Um,
Mhm.
so,
Mhm.
just playing around with word as finding meaning in our own lives, and particularly in our relationship with God.
And so the word for this weekend is it's cold.
Oh, it is cold.
Cold is the word for the weekend, but recognize that in the midst of it, it's okay. We've
Yes.
been cold before.
Yeah.
When we come together for Christmas Eve, when we come together for Christmas morning, there's a warmth to the fellowship. The building will be warm.
Mhm.
There'll be the opportunity to come together and just to celebrate again. It's going to be very tempting to just kind of stay under those covers, but don't miss out on what God may be speaking to you through worship and through
Wow.
community this season as well. So make put on the
Absolutely.
gloves, put on the coat, warm up the
Yes.
car, and come on
Yes.
over to church.
Yes. We'll have the heat on.
We'll have the heat on for
Um,
you.
and then the fellowship will be warm as well.
Yep.
So yes. So blessings to you as we finish this Advent season and move into the Christmas season. We do look forward to worshiping together on Christmas Eve and on Christmas morning. Um, yeah.
Blessings to you.
Blessings to you all. Go in peace.